There's one Auburn Tiger defensive back that we may be overlooking.
Well, Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken farm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Happy Ferg Friday to all those who celebrate. Justin Ferguson with the Auburn Observer joining us today. Jay Ferg, Pro Football Focus tweeted out a tweet earlier this week that I thought was pretty interesting for a couple of different reasons. But most press coverage snaps played since 2020 without allowing a touchdown. Nehemiah Pritchett leading the field significantly with 269 snaps. Is there value in that? I mean, obviously that's good. You never want to allow a touchdown, but what Auburn does defensively is drastically different than it was in 2020. Does that stat matter?
Yeah, it definitely matters because I think they do use it from time to time. I think the part of the Derek Mason defense last season that was so interesting is that they mixed everything up, right? Like they played more zone. They played, off man coverage a decent bit as well. No, but Nehemiah Pritchett is a really good press corner. In 2020, he graded out as one of the better corners in college football, right up there with Roger McCreary in terms of just his stats and some of the advanced numbers for him. Last season, obviously, having to play some more nickel than straight outside corner. I think he ended up playing a little more outside corner than he did nickel, but it was basically splitting time there. So, yeah, there's a ton of value there when he's pressed up. And I think if you want to look at Pritchett's numbers from last season, it's a lot more catches he gave up, a lot more yards per catch he gave up. Well, it's because he's covering dudes in the slot. It's really, you can't just shut dudes down in the slot. You manage them more in the middle of the field than you do just put them on. I mean, because you're not putting them on an island, really. But yeah, no, it does have value. I think, how Auburn uses their corners and their defensive backs this season is going to be fascinating to watch, just because you bring in DJ James. You have some young guys that you really, really like that performed well in the spring. You bring in Keontae Scott from the junior college ranks. So, they could do different things with Nehemiah Pritchett. And I think statistically, this stat and what he did in 2020 show that when he gets to get out on his own off onto the outside and really press up against a guy, it works. Now, you're not going to do that every play. Not every situation is going to call for that. This is not the Kevin Steele defense anymore, where Auburn just did what they did, and they did it very, very often. But it does have a lot of value because I think, it just shows you kind of his versatility. And I think if he, steps up and has a really good year in some of the areas outside of playing press coverage, I think you're talking about a dude that, could be a decent NFL draft pick next year.
Yeah, I'm there with you. And his numbers did drop off, as you said. His overall defensive grade last year was just a 55.4, but that doesn't tell the full story, like you just said. So,
right.
When you look at Auburn's top three corners, I think their top three corners, Jay Ferg, going into the season are Nehemiah Pritchett, Jaylin Simpson, and DJ James. If you differ, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But those three guys are probably all going to be on the field at the same time. Maybe not consistently, but of those three, who's most likely to be the nickel, right? I mean, it is Pritchett, right? And then you put Simpson and James on the outside. Is that what you're expecting?
That's what I would probably expect. You've got a situation in with Keontae Scott as well that you can do some different things if you have to. I am trying to figure out right now, where DJ James played at Oregon. Pulling it up right now. Mostly wide corner. Didn't look like he played a lot of slot last season. So, I don't see him. Guys moving around. It looked like this.
Played some safety though. I think they put him in the middle of the field. I think.
Yes. Played a little bit of safety. Slid into the box a couple times as well.
Yeah.
I think when you saw in spring practice, they liked some of these young guys at nickel. I think they're already trying to figure. And again, we've talked about it on here before, but the whole process of playing nickel at Auburn, it used to be, hey, you're the guy, you're the nickel, boom, here, this is what you do. What you see a little bit more now in this defense, started by Derek Mason last year, I think you're going to see it continue this year with Jeff Schmedding, is you have a third corner, you have a slot corner, and you also have a third safety, and those guys go back and forth. Like you do see Donovan Kaufman play nickel, right? Because in some situations you'd rather have a safety on the field than a corner. So it is a different way to go about it. I think there's a lot of mixing and matching you do out there. I think where Kaufman ends up playing most often is maybe the more interesting piece of this, because if say he takes a lot more nickel snaps, then it can kind of shuffle things around. But honestly, as we know from from what Kevin Steele used to preach about his defense, you really want to have in your secondary, you want to have 6, 7, maybe 8 guys that you consider starter quality, right? And I think all those dudes that we've mentioned are going to factor in there. I think the thinness comes at safety, and it's like, okay, with guys like Craig McDonald, with different guys over the top of that, maybe some of the young guys, maybe some of the newcomers, who emerges there, because you feel good about your top 2, but you need depth there. At least at corner, there's a lot. I think there's a decent bit of folks that are a little bit more established, whether it's by the fact that they are transferring in or, they did good work in spring ball.
And I think that's what makes the nickel rotation more interesting, because Donovan Kaufman's probably the most likely to be the technical starter there, just because we saw him do that in the spring. We saw him do that throughout the year last year, though Pritchett did it as well. But there's more corners that I think are plug and play ready to go on this roster than safety. But you love the upside of like Zion Puckett back there. What does a Marquise Gilbert do? The top JUCO guy coming in. And then you mentioned Craig McDonald is a guy that I think is going to be really, really good. And so it's like, well, there's depth. It's not as proven, but there is depth there.
Yeah, no, there is. And getting Craig McDonald ended up being really huge, because if you don't get him, you were most likely going to have to rely on multiple guys with no college experience playing back there and giving you, hey, look, if those guys, if those guys like
Cade Bridges,
Cade Bridges or Caleb Wooden, if those guys emerge and show in fall camp that they're ready to play right now, then good, right? But it means more if those guys beat out guys who have played at the college level, played at the FBS or the Power 5 level, or even high JUCO, than it is if it's just like, well, we're going to you because you're it. And so getting guys like Craig McDonald, I think was pretty big this offseason. And I also think McDonald has a skill set that's a little different than everybody else's out there. And he comes from a defense at Iowa State that did things a little differently, that I think it's going to fit in.
Right. All right. Should Auburn fans be thankful? I think they should. And I'll explain why in just a moment. Hey, today's show is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Actually just got some numbers emailed to me. Auburn's updated odds to win the SEC are 80-1. So if you think Auburn's going to go on a tear here and you want to make some money, you head over to BetOnline right now and you put your money on the Tigers. 81 odds to win the SEC. Of course, they've got all sorts of futures bets for college football, for the NFL. And a big thing right now is live betting for Major League Baseball. You can check it all out at BetOnline. That's where the game starts. Jay Ferg, what all is going on these days at the Auburn Observer?
Yeah, so this week actually, since the last time we talked, we've done a couple of breakdowns on the guys that Auburn has picked up in recruiting. So Jeremiah Cobb and Carmelo English. You can check those out at the Observer. Did a podcast on Thursday with our friend Nicole Auerbach. What the heck's happening with conference realignment and what the SEC might do next. We talked about that. Those are really good times, so you can listen to that if you're a subscriber. What else have we done during the week? Other podcasts throughout the last couple of weeks. I've had a lot of fun, some really fun special guests as well. Mailbag out today if you're listening to this. So it's all at the Auburn Observer, auburnobserver.com. Sign up there. $6 a month or $60 a year gets you full access to everything we do. We guarantee you at least 5 things a week, whether it's newsletters or podcasts, and they come out at about 6 a.m. Central Time weekday mornings.
Yep. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. AuburnObserver.com. Yeah. And piggybacking on the conversation you had with Nicole Arbach on your podcast yesterday, Jay Ferg, a part of my job outside of this podcast is to listen to other college shows,
right?
Talking about it, kind of sending them notes and things like that. But it's so interesting. You listen to the Big Ten shows and they sound like, they've won everything, right? Like their status in college football is rising. And then you go listen to a Pac-12 show and it's like their world is falling apart.
Yeah.
And so I think Auburn fans need to be aware of the fact that they are part of such a great establishment and such a great conference in the SEC. Like, there's no danger to you. There's no danger to your program. And not a lot of people can say that right now.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. You are one of the top 15 programs all time, and you're going to stay that way. You can have highs and lows, and Auburn has more highs and lows than pretty much anybody in major college football. But yeah, I mean they're set. The SEC is the moneymaker. The Big Ten is going to come really, really close. I think they're going to maximize what they do, and this vision of the future where people think, it's going to be the SEC and the Big Ten versus the world. Like, yeah, that's probably going to happen. But Auburn's in a really good spot right now. And I think they're also in the conference where, right now, when we talk about the Big Ten, look, they went out and got USC and UCLA, and they needed to, because they weren't going to just let stay pat at 14. They were going to counter what the SEC did, and it's going to make them more money. But it's going to make things tougher. Like, travel is going to be insane. Some of the traditions that you remember in college football, especially the Rose Bowl, is going to be not really relevant anymore because of this move. Meanwhile, the SEC, yeah, it's all about money. Yeah, it's not necessarily anything that's going to benefit fans or players specifically. So, I mean, let's be very clear. This is all about who's getting the cash. So you don't want to say it's a virtuous thing at all. But the SEC, if they expand like they did with Texas and Oklahoma, they're doing it in a way where it makes sense. Regionally, it fits. If the SEC wants to keep expanding, and if we go to this era where these mega conferences with 20 plus teams in it, you're most likely going to see the SEC go get Clemson and Florida State and Miami and teams like that. So that at least makes sense, and it doesn't jeopardize the order of things like what the Big Ten did with USC and UCLA.
Yeah, I don't think Oregon and Washington are going to get a call from the SEC, which I think is cool. I think, does geography really matter as much with football? No, but with some of these smaller sports, that's a big deal. Your non-rev sports, I don't really understand how that's going to happen. I guess they just expect the TV deals to be big enough to cover everything, but that's going to be a really, really interesting thing to see kind of unfold here.
Yeah, I am not I'm not a fan of making people go play in Los Angeles and New Jersey in the same conference. It just doesn't make any sense to me. When Auburn has to play Missouri in sports and Texas A&M in sports, it can get difficult. It can get kind of frustrating, but that pales in comparison to going literally across the country.
Mm-hmm. It's a big deal. It's a big
Huge
deal.
deal.
Jay Ferg, we're starting to see more and more reports come out from the Auburn football program about culture and just how about, just the change in mentality of this team. The work ethic seems to be there. They seem to be more in unison across the board, which was all speculative. Now it seems like reports are confirming that. What kind of impact can that make when it comes to wins and losses and overall production this season?
It's one of those things where it's I don't think it's necessarily going to say, well, that means definitely they're going to be better this year. But what I do think is, if you are going to be better than this year, you absolutely have to have that. I said that when, everything happened with Bryan Harsin and you came out of it, and you had guys like John Samuel Shanker and Derek Hall and these leaders on the team saying, hey, we're behind this. We believe in this team. It's well, yeah, that is 100%. If you're going to do this, us against the world, we're going to shock everybody. Everybody on the inside's got to be bought in, right? The challenges are great, right? Auburn's schedule is what it is, and it's even tougher this year because it is in Alabama and Georgia both on the road year. the question marks are great as well. They're answerable, and like, it's not going to keep them like, I'm not looking at Auburn's roster and saying there's no way this team can win 7 or 8 or 9 games. Like, I'm not saying that at all, but things could get sideways if those question marks aren't answered pretty quickly. But yeah, this is something you absolutely have to have, right? And we heard all last year about, team culture and, the strength and conditioning program and changing the culture. And there were good, there was a good impact. I mean, remember Auburn was 6-2 at one point. Like they got off to a really good start in year one. Just things went really, really sideways late in the year. And there were obviously frustrations, and not everybody was on the same page. And like, some of that is always going to be around when you're dealing with a major college football team. But I do think, like, when you read these reports of like, hey, everybody's bought in, they feel like that this is going to be a step in the right direction and all that. It's like, we'll see if that translates to wins and losses on the field. But like, it's impossible for it to translate to wins if you're not in that right now. So like, yeah, those are good things to hear about, and it's some of the same things I've heard about and seen about the team as well. But it's like, if you were hearing those things, it's like, oh god, this is going to be a really bad fall. So I don't think it directly translates to how much better they're going to be this year, but like, it's something you absolutely have to have. Everybody's got to be bought in. Like, if you're gonna take on this challenge and you're going to overcome it and you're going to prove a lot of people wrong, you got to be all in. And I think that's one of the things that this staff and this group of players is pretty good at, is that they get people bought in and they're buying into it. And we'll see how much it'll impact the fall.
Right. Yeah. And just, the whole hiring of Harsin, I think we all knew at the time, like, this is going to be a build. And this is kind of the next step of it, is like, okay, everybody in the program is now, they all have the same vision. It sounds like there's less arguing with coaches and players. It sounds like everybody's kind of, in unison as far as taking that step forward. So if they don't win 7 or 8 games, it's like, you'd hate to see it all go to waste, kind of thing. And so I think 8 home games is a big deal. I think getting 8 home games is a big deal, and all 8 of them are winnable.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of those are going to be really tough, but yeah, I mean, they are winnable. And if you're Auburn, I don't think there's necessarily like a magic number where, like, if you hit this many wins, everybody will be happy and no one will have issues again with the staff. And it's like, yeah, maybe 10, like, you get to that point. But I think the main goal for this team is still the same, right? Like, if you're saying in year 2, hey, believe in what we're doing, believe in what we're building, okay, you got to show progress. The easy part of that is, well, maybe not easy, but the obvious part of that is, well, you went 6-7 last year. Improve that, and like, that's, you can just straight improve that against a schedule that I think is tougher.
Yeah,
that will say a lot. But I think there's going to be a lot of just, like, I don't want to say vibes, but like how everything kind of feels about it. Like, you've got to be better on offense. You got to show more life on that side of the ball.
You've got to look the part. I mean, I've said this before, like, Auburn and Bryan Harsin, they are battling a perception issue. Like,
yeah, if you go 7-5, if you go 7-5, but still look like really bad on offense like they did towards the end of last season, like, I don't think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, it was 7-5. Well, it's, everybody should buy into it.
Especially going to the if Auburn's 7-5 with a bad offense, and it's like, oh, we lose the whole line. Oh, we lose Tank Bigsby. Like, Samuel Shanker's gone. Like, that's not a good feeling,
Right, exactly. So it's got to be improvement. It's got to be the right looking improvement, but it's definitely possible. And like I said, it all starts with everybody being together.
Yep. And it seems like they got that. Or they're at least closer to that, which is good. All right, let's play a game. We got a little game lined up, courtesy of our friends in the Locked On Auburn Discord, which you can join that by clicking the link in the episode description down below. But hey, today's show is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn. You can create a free job post in just minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then you can add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring, so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Look, tools like LinkedIn Jobs are why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Jay Ferg, got a few start bench cuts, courtesy of our friends in the Locked On Auburn Discord. I did not have it pulled up. My apologies. Okay, I like this one. Start bench cut, Shedrick Jackson, Coy Moore, or Landon King. I'm starting Landon King because I'm obsessed with him.
Right.
And then it's tough of like, you know what you're getting with Shedrick, and you're also getting leadership. But I also really like the upside of Coy Moore. So I'd probably bench Coy Moore and cut Shedrick Jackson.
I think if you're looking for the future, like, yeah, that's probably the direction I would go. I might flip those first two. And like, again, nothing against Shedrick Jackson. He's Auburn's leading receiver and he's all that. But like, right. I guess I'm playing long game with this. And it's like, getting rid of a guy on his last year of his contract, getting rid of a dude on an expiring in pro sports. Like, that's kind of my thought process. Because I think there's a lot of potential with Landon King. I think there's a good amount of potential with Coy Moore. And I think Shedrick Jackson is going to be a big piece of this team this year. But, like, this is it for Shedrick Jackson. So if I'm playing big picture, I'll probably go in that kind of direction as well.
And I just love the upside of it. Like, is Shed going to be 1,000-yard receiver? No. I
don't know if there's any of those dudes on this roster right now, though. Like, they're going to have to show that.
Probably right. You're probably right. That would be a surprise if anybody did that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Start bench cut. Quentin Groves, Derek Hall, Jeff Holland. Defensive end / edge position here.
I'm going to go in that order. I'm going to start Quentin Groves. I'm going to bench Derek Hall, and I'm going to cut Jeff Holland. Nothing against Jeff Holland. 1 year. Just 1 year where he just exploded. Derek Hall is, I think, just the consistency. Because I remember when he was a freshman, I remember watching him and being like, oh, gosh, this dude's going to be really, really good. Yeah. And then Quentin Groves is like an all-time great.
This one's funny, I think. And this adds the caveat of you have to think about it in the perspective when they were at Auburn.
Okay.
Start bench cut, athletic backup edition. Malik Willis, John Franklin III, Robbie Ashford.
I'm going to start Malik Willis. I'm going to bench Robbie Ashford, right? And I'm going to cut John Franklin III.
That's my thinking as well.
And it's like I think Robbie Ashford could be a really good quarterback, but we just haven't seen it yet. And so at least I know, while they're at Auburn, there were a few games for Malik Willis at Auburn where it was like, man, this dude's gonna be all world at some point, and it just didn't really work out his sophomore year, and he made the best decision for himself.
No, it clearly worked out. All right, we got a few more. Start bench cut. Tyler Fromm, Luke Deal, Brendan Frazier.
Start Luke Deal, bench Tyler Fromm, cut Brandon Frazier. Again, and it's just like we just haven't seen a ton from Frazier at this point. I love Luke Deal. I like a guy that can give you something in the receiving game, but his primary goal is just going to be to bury people as a blocker.
I just love that mentality. And I think that lines up with Harsin. I think that's why John Samuel Shanker likes what Harsin's doing so much. But just the whole, like, I don't care if I get recognition. I just want this offense to work. And so I'm going to do whatever it takes to make that happen. I love that.
I will. Yeah. And I'll always ride for somebody who's willing to play fullback in the year 2022. Like, cause that is not a position and not a role where it's going to like turn into like a good future for you and millions and millions of dollars. Like, no, you just do that. Cause you like that. You're willing to do whatever it takes for your team. And also you're pretty good at just burying people.
Yeah. Yeah. Fullbacks are dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are really cool. Therefore fullbacks are cool with me. All right. Last one, start bench. They actually said start bench transfer portal. Carlton Davis.
That might be a little better. Cut's tough to me.
That's less intense. Yeah, let's do that. Start bench transfer portal. Carlton Davis, Roger McCreary, or Carlos Rogers.
Oh, I mean, okay. So start Carlos Rogers.
Rogers.
He won the Thorpe Award.
And then it's Carlton's better than Roger, right? Which hurts me because I love Creary, but Carlton Davis is just so good. So good.
And he's been amazing in the NFL. Yeah, it's tough.
He got an extension earlier this offseason, so
yeah, that's probably the direction I would go as well. But yeah, Carlos Rogers, I mean, the man was a first rounder and the only Auburn player to ever win the Thorpe Award.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Jay Ferg, thank you so much for your time. As always, my friend, how can people find you, read you, hear you, support you, all that stuff?
AuburnObserver.com, $6 a month or $60 a year, get you access to everything we've got going on. So 3 newsletters, 2 podcasts a week if you sign up and subscribe. You can also get a free trial on the website. And yeah, check it out.
AuburnObserver.com. It is worth it, folks. All right, next time you hear from me, I will be broadcasting from a basement in Ohio, but we'll be back on Monday to recap everything that happens over the weekend. You can read all my work at auburndaily.com. And of course, click that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. We're just a few away from 5,000 subscribers, which is absolutely crazy. Thank you so much for helping us get to that point. We'll see you on Monday right here on Locked On Auburn.